Alright, I've got my car shaded up pretty well so far, so I'm going to go ahead and start creating my studio lighting setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the backdrop plate. I'm going to go under Create and CV Curve tool and just real quick create a profile for my background. I'm going to make this nice round curve in the back in the corner here. Create this curve, duplicate it, pull it out, and come up here and I've got my Surfaces tab, and under Surfaces make a loft, and I've got my settings set up so that I output to polygons and not to NURBS with this polygon button right here. And then I use quads and count, so it's going to output a polygon object in quads with a count of 60, and that generally works pretty well, but I'm going to up that up to 120 right now and apply that. And I've kind of got this nasty corner here, and I want to make sure this is absolutely rounded and smooth. So I'm just going to go ahead up to here, modify, and convert polygons to subds. And so that might change a little bit. It still looks kind of nasty, but now that it's converted to subds, trust me, once I render it, I'm going to have a nice smooth angle. It's going to look kind of like this with the preview, but now because it's actually converted to subds, Mental Ray will create this nice round angle, and I'm going to have, when my lighting hits it, it'll be this nice smooth transition. And so as a backplate, you won't really notice any hard corners, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So now I'm going to go ahead and create my camera, just under Create and Cameras, and then I'm going to use the one with the camera aim and the up all together, because it just gives me the most control. And click and drag this out here, place the focal point in the center of the car, or the aim rather, and in order to see what the camera is seeing, I'm going to go up to Panels and Perspective, and I'm going to set it on Camera 1. So now this panel will see whatever the camera is seeing. So I get that positioned relatively well. I'm going to go for probably a low angle shot. It seems to look a little bit better if you keep the camera at a low angle, looking up at the car. Just can make it look a little bit meaner, for a sports car. Because if you tend to, the aerial shots kind of make it look smaller and less intimidating, but really it's all up to you, however you want to do it. And also I can go up here to View and Select Camera and bring up my attribute editor. And by default, the focal length is 35, but I want a bit of a fisheye effect, so I'm going to bring it down to about 24. And that's going to distort my camera lens a little bit more, give me some more perspective, make it look a little bit, I don't know, stretch it out a little bit. But also what you can do is make it higher, like if you make your focal length about 65, like it really flattens it, and you get this nice, almost orthographic kind of style to it. And then you can go even higher than that, like 90. And basically it's just flattening your image, flattening your perspective. So it all depends on what you want to do. I'm going to use my up aim to tilt the camera just a little bit. And also I don't want my I want my backdrop to fill the entire area, so I'm just going to extrude this out a little bit more, scale it up, make sure it fills the entire background. And so I bring up my render options at this point. And underneath Common, I'm going to set my my resolution. Set this preset to HD 720, and that's going to be our final resolution at 1280 by 720. Usually find that works pretty well for most things. I got my maintain width and height ratio set. Just because I'm still in the preview mode, I'm going to turn this down. So my height is 720 by 405. And that's just going to be our lower res preview. Same dimensions, but just fewer pixels to render, so it'll make my my test renders run a little bit faster. So it might be something you want to do. And also I'm going to go over here to quality. And right now it's on draft by default, and I'm just going to kick it up to production. And then it creates a bunch of settings for me. But my max sample level, it's got it at 2, and that's a little bit high for running test renders. I'm just going to turn that down to 1 for right now. There's definitely a big difference between 1 and 2 in render time. So that's definitely a quality setting you might want to turn down for your test renders. But make sure you turn that back up right when you do your finals. Okay, and now that I've got my resolution set, I'm going to go up to View in my render camera, camera settings, and resolution gate. And you can see what that does is it crops it. So you can tell right there, this green box represents exactly what's going to be shown inside the render. And now I can tell, like, I just missed that corner. So if I hadn't turned render frame on, I would have launched this render expecting it to work out. But now you can see I've exposed this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and scale up my plane. There we go. Okay, and now I've got my camera right where I want it. It's very important that the camera doesn't move, because I'm going to be creating cards and my whole lighting setup, and it's all going to be based around my camera being right in this position. So I want to make sure that that camera doesn't move. So right at frame 1 of my timeline, I'm going to go ahead and push the S key, and that's going to create keys in all in all my translate attributes. All right, so I've keyed my camera at the first frame, and so now anytime later on, if I move that camera for whatever reason, and I forget, I can always just come back to my timeline and just move the slider back to 1, and my camera snaps back into position. So now that camera is locked down, and I've got all my render settings, I'm ready to start creating my lights in the next section.